since we've got the Super Bowl coming up, and since this last weekend was bereft of any football, almost causing life to know it as we know it anyway now to end. Anyway, top 10 signs you've been watching too much football. 10. An optical exam reveals a little tiny Dan Deerdorf etched into your retina. 9. Your grandmother falls down the steps and you yell, touchdown! 8. Hash marks on your butt. 7. You spend all your free time making brownies for John Madden. 6. At dinner, somebody says, pass the ham, and you hurl that mother 60 yards. 5. Your wife wins a hand of pinochle, and you dump 40 gallons of Gatorade on her head. 4. While making love to your husband, you stop and call for a measurement. 3. You're hurled from your car after a high-speed collision, and your first thought is, oh boy, I'm in a tight spiral. 2. After sex, you spike the pillow. And the number 1 sign you've been watching too much football, Dan Rather announces a meteor is going to strike the earth, ending all life as we know it, and you murmur, please don't let it be Sunday.
Pycnogenol, a hard name to remember, but important because it's...
Of course, my ISDN line, my computer is fixed. I got it all done today. Remember last night I said I'm not even in a good enough mood to bring out my special whacker piece, but tonight I shall. Why not?
Don't wear that fat. Whack it.
Thought I'd dredge it out because I am in a pretty good mood. It's all fixed. All right. Are you, as promised, here first from not Philadelphia, but from rather Memphis, Tennessee? I'll find out what she's doing down in Memphis. I have no idea. We're going to ask, is Linda Moulton Howe, who is an investigator into all sorts of things, crop circles, animal mutilations, has been for years. I frequently say that I consider her to be the world's expert on these matters, and she protests, saying she is but an investigator, and she certainly is that. She's our science reporter and has been for years. She investigates all kinds of things, and she has won documentaries for her very good work, her documentaries on environmental problems. Here, from Memphis, Tennessee, is Linda Moulton Howe. Linda, welcome to the program.
Hi, Art.
Hi. Great to have you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here today, and I'm glad to be in Memphis at WOWW, known as WOW, 1430 AM, the buzz in this great city. This will be the new radio home for Night Search, produced and hosted by Eddie Middleton, who has invited me to speak here this weekend at the University of Tennessee in Memphis. And Night Search will be broadcasting full-time from WOW starting in January of 1999, and they, too, are joining a group of media people around the country that are realizing that what you and I have been talking about on Coast and Dreamland for a long time is in the area of facts and hard evidence, not fiction. So Night Search is a program in Memphis that our Memphis Dreamland listeners, I hope you will continue to tune into. And as we near the end of 1998, records are being broken for worldwide weather damage, fish deaths, and water pollution. Thousands of people are trying to fix the Y2 computer problems, and the first glitches might hit in January 1999. And for several weeks, I've been receiving reports about unusual animal deaths ranging from bloodlessly mutilated cats, goats, and cattle to a deer in Red Bluff, California. I'll have more about the deer later, but first, some news updates behind these headlines. Recently, the World Watch Institute issued a report that shows violent weather around the world has cost $89 billion this year alone.
That's right.
More money than was spent for weather disaster relief in the entire decade of the 1980s. 32,000 people died, and 300 million lost their homes. 1998 also had the warmest temperatures in this era of global warming. It is moving upward and climbing. And in 1998, the salmon nearly disappeared from the Yukon River in Alaska. Now 13 villages and their sled dogs that do so much hauling and heavy work are starving without the fish to eat. The situation is so bad that the United States Army has been airlifting tons of fish to help the communities survive this winter. Salmon once filled the Northwest and Alaskan rivers, and now the fish are disappearing at an alarming rate due to dams, pollution, and other factors, raising what would have been an unthinkable question a few decades ago.
Let me jump in and add to it, Linda. I've got a very serious report here from the Electronic Telegraph that in Alaska and worldwide, not only are glaciers receding at an unprecedented rate, but this one is going to really worry you. They now have evidence that the permafrost is beginning to melt in Alaska.
And remember when I did that interview with the scientist about 6 months ago on that very issue, that the trees were dying because the permafrost was starting to do exactly that. And the trees are dying not because they're overflooded, but because as the soil is melting, the water is going down further and the tree roots are left without water.
Precisely.
And it is a major problem.
Precisely.
And another one of the haunting questions left from what has been happening to the salmon is, will Northwest salmon completely die out in the next few years, joining the growing list of extinctions? This was unthinkable a few decades ago. Water pollution is also making headlines in New Jersey, a highly industrial state plagued by contaminated water. Recently, new federal and state tests of drinking water have detected far higher levels of radium in public water supplies than ever found before in South Jersey.
Yum, yum.
Radium levels are 160% greater on average than was previously known in nearly 100 public water supplies that serve more than 1 million people.
Great.
Radioactive pollution includes radium-226, 228, and now 224. Radium-224 is an isotope never detected before in New Jersey drinking water.
Should be part of anybody's well-rounded diet.
The problem is that radium is known to cause bone cancer. When radium is ingested, the body thinks it is calcium and stores it in the bones. That's especially dangerous to children who are still growing. And one of the towns with radium-224 in its drinking water is Tom's River, where a cluster of cancers among children have been reported. Radium occurs naturally in soils and gets into underground aquifers when chemical pollution from fertilizer and lime used on lawns and farms seeps down through radium deposits. Now, 3 weeks from now, as the clock ticks down to January 1st, 1999, we're going to see how much COBOL software from the 1960s can still stop computer processing today.
Really? I thought it was 2000.
2000 is the biggest problem, but there is question out there about how many old chips of COBOL that were programmed for 99 to stop file processing may cause some problems. That's why some people are referring to 1999 January may be the mini blip before the zeros on January 1st, 2000 potentially bring computers around the world to a halt if they aren't fixed. This week, I talked with computer scientists at Princeton and the University of Southern California. They admit there could still be old COBOL software and hardware chips embedded in banking, insurance, and other businesses. Now, 99 was used every once in a while back in the 60s to stop a file processing, a bit like a reporter might put -30- to signal the end of a story. And in 1998 tests so far, 99 has not caused any big problems, but some of the unpredictable areas have ranged from traffic control towers to what might happen to electrical power grids in either the 99 COBOL end-of-file scenario or the 00 shutdown problem. The United States Department of Energy is depending on the North American Electric Reliability Council based in Princeton, New Jersey, to, quote, ensure that the electric supply system will not experience serious disruption, unquote.
Linda, let me again, for a second, stop you. The other day, it made national news. Guess what? At drive time, the power went out in San Francisco.
Right.
The entire San Francisco area, traffic lights stopped, chaos ensued. It was a mess. Now, let me finish, Linda.
Yeah.
We got plenty of time. They began to issue reasons why they thought this happened. And what they said first was, well, it was a domino effect from one little power dump or power station. And it was always my understanding, Linda, that the power grid, as we know it, was put together specifically to isolate power problems, not to allow one power problem to take down an entire region or area of the country with a cascading failure. So there's something profoundly wrong with the power grid system that instead of protecting and isolating, kind of like watertight doors in a submarine, allows the entire submarine to be flooded, or in this case, an entire city to go without power.
And I bet you, like I, thought, I wonder if this is a prelude to the kind of problems that we're going to be seeing maybe a tiny bit in 99.
Hear, hear.
Certainly, this is what they're worried about in the year 2000, starting with January 1st. And I asked the Electric Council's Director of Communications, Gene Gozelnik, what his current level of concern is.
We're concerned, but we think that everything that is being done and is to be done will allow us to be able to manage the system in such a way that any disruptions would be relatively small in nature, minor in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can fix it.
It can be fixed quickly. That's the goal. That's what we're working for. That if a problem arises, it'll be taken care of quickly.
And what the general audience, when they say, well, why can't they fix it before it happens, is the answer
Well, we are working on that right now, and we are fixing all those things that we've identified. With everything that is being fixed, it's conceivable that something may be missed.
Right, and isn't that the whole big issue, is that no matter how many people are working so hard on this, that there may be buried chips, hardware, software, that still may have...
Somehow you miss it.
Yeah.
And that's why you then have backup plans or contingency plans.
Testing of systems so far has turned up some odd anomalies. For example, one California county learned that a glitch in the controls of its jail meant that New Year's Day, January 1st, 2000, the electronically controlled cell doors would default into an open position, letting prisoners out. When Ford Motor Company advanced the clock at one of its factories to January 1st, 2000, the opposite problem occurred. The electronic doors locked people inside the factory. According to a survey of overall progress in repairing critical computer systems, 50% are now year 2000 compliant. In the federal government, the agencies closest to 100% repair are the Social Security Administration and the National Science Foundation. At the bottom of the list, with little progress, was a very disturbing surprise: the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
That's right.
And the Defense Department is only about 42% compliant so far.
This is nothing to laugh at, but I mean, of all the things that you wouldn't want to find at the bottom of the list would be our nuclear power plants.
Well, exactly, and I was so shocked at that. And the good news, I guess, if there is any here on this list, is that the weapon systems default to an off position when something goes wrong. So nothing fires automatically, according to the chairman of the President's Council on year 2000 conversion. Now, Art, because we're down near the bottom of the hour, and my next report with a very interesting audio cassette is switching gears into the unusual animal death.
Okay, let's sort of just take it as it comes. I haven't heard from Dannion yet, so we'll just sort of take it as it comes. But I tell you, Linda, on the whole Y2K thing, I've been on that story for a long time with Gary North and Ed Jordan and a lot of others, and people have accused me of being all kinds of things for reporting on this, scaremongering, all the rest of it. Then 60 Minutes, as you must know, a couple of weeks ago, did a big story on Y2K, verifying just about everything that Gary North, Ed Jordan, and now you have reported. Right. And so it's like America is suddenly starting to wake up on this issue. And if they're 50% compliant now, that's great. I am told that with all the programmers and the amount of time we have left, there is not an issue here. There's not a controversy. We will not make it in time, period.
And stay out of airplanes December 31st, 99 to January 1st, 2000.
At least. Linda, hold on. We'll be back to you after the bottom of the hour. My guest is Linda Moulton Howe. Guest? Well, I guess she's not a guest. She's a full-time participant in the program and has been for years. So we've got so much ground to cover and probably not enough time. We'll break here. This is Dreamland. Good evening, everybody. Linda Moulton Howe is here for the next 30 minutes, we have just learned. And then Dannion Brinkley, who did what Dannion does and was attending to a patient who was dying, unfortunately has passed away. And so Dannion will be with us at the top of the hour. In between then and now, we have more than enough ground to cover with Linda Moulton Howe. We'll be right back. It is a prudent Tennessee. Linda, let me update you just very quickly. This electronic telegraph story I was telling you about, entitled Alaska Meltdown, as global warming thaws permafrost. Frozen soil that underpins much of Alaska is melting, causing roads to collapse and landslides, and revealing that the U.S. may be suffering one of the first tangible consequences of global warming. Scientists have discovered that temperatures in Alaska are rising 3 times faster than the rest of the Arctic. 3 feet below the surface, the permafrost soil that is supposed to never thaw is now 1 degree warmer than just a decade ago. And in Fairbanks, roads are beginning to collapse, Linda.
That's right. And this, when you start having water runoff from land into the oceans, that's what's going to contribute even more so to sea level rise. One of the scientists a few months ago on Dream and Coast made the point to me that when you're dealing with the ice, for example, in the Arctic, that is like an ice cube floating in a glass. If it melts, then it doesn't really change things. But when you have water coming off of land masses like the Antarctic and Alaska, it's contributing also to sea level rise.
Right. So if you live in a coastal town, gurgle, gurgle.
It could be so much more serious, I think, than some of the, we'll call them anti-environmentalists, have been sort of dragging their heels on this and trying to say to people that global warming is not real. Clearly, this administration knows it is. The scientists around the world know that it is. And we have, as a human family, we're going to have to deal with this. And incoming, as you're saying, if roads start collapsing and sea levels start rising and water pours into New Orleans, we're into a whole new century of increasing problems.
I don't understand how anybody can be an anti-environmentalist, and yet there are such people. It is a political position that I think says, look, I'm mortal. I might live to be my 80s, in my 80s, and I really don't give a damn what happens after that. That's all I can figure.
Well, now to a mysterious problem. The ongoing reports of strange, bloodless animal mutilations since at least the early 1950s. A month ago, on November 9th and 10th, 1998, Cheryl and Norman Banworth in Red Bluff, California, asked their teenage grandsons to pick up trash around their rural property. About 200 feet from their house is an old shed that is empty and unused. The boys were in the empty shed on November 9th, and nothing was wrong. But the next day, November 10th, around 5 o'clock that afternoon, Cheryl Banworth heard her grandsons come running into the house, upset and yelling.
And they said that there was a deer out there. And I said, well, somebody must have shot the deer, and it went in there. And they said, no, it wasn't shot. There's no bullet holes or anything. And they're hunters, so they know.
How old are your grandsons?
They're 12 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told my husband to go out and check the deer out. And then he came back and said it was really strange.
First thing I noticed was his jaw was peeled down his jawbone,
Right.
and the tongue was complete. You know, its tongue was gone,
Right.
and the eye. That's the first thing. The eye was completely gone. I lifted the tail up, and then I said, "Gee whiz!" I thought of that. The animal knew everything.
Can you tell me exactly what you were seeing when you lifted up that tail?
Yeah, you know, the whole, just like it corded out. I mean, the whole, if I held my fingers together, my index finger and my thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and made a circle like that,
Mm-hmm.
completely round circle, and then it was like it corded out, took the whole hind head out of it right there. It was a female deer.
Mm-hmm.
There was no blood there, no blood whatsoever. On a deer, it's white. The hair is white there in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and there ain't a bit of blood on it. With no blood anywhere.
Now, around on the ground, was it lying on wood or dirt?
It was kind of straw dirt.
Dirt.
It had a dirt floor, it got straw on it. It got there, no drag marks, no nothing, and that's not a real big deer, but I couldn't carry it. I guess I could by the legs and lay it down flat like that. There's no way a mountain lion or anything like that could do that.
But a mountain lion would leave tooth marks and claw marks.
Right. There's no other marks. We were there with the officer. Me and him looked it out pretty good.
Could the police officer find any evidence of tooth marks or claw marks?
No. He was so excited that he even set his flashlight off in the dark when he was there to see if anything glowed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He'd never seen nothing like this.
Well, why do you think, then, that the Fish and Game Department classified this as a mountain lion kill?
I really don't know. No teeth marks, no nothing there. There's no way.
Right. Right.
And how would it get there? That's the other thing. They didn't drag it. I mean, that deer wasn't drugged or anything. It was just lay there in place there. It was laying, the deer, you know, if we even shoot a deer that doesn't, you know, is wounded, when they lay down, they don't lay down like this. They lay down, you know, like this regular lay down, tuck their legs under them. This thing was laying flat on its side, with both legs spread out, and his head, you know, just laying
Flat.
like somebody just laid it there.
And if I understand from your wife, your two grandsons discovered it, and they had on the, on what was Tuesday the 10th, and the day before, they had been in the shed also playing, and there was no deer there.
Right, there was no deer there. No. And we were here all Tuesday afternoon. That was my day off. A friend of mine, we were up here working on my computer, and we never noticed anything out of the ordinary.
Art, I'm looking at photographs that the Banworth took of this deer, and it is eerie. It is lying on this small shed floor. There is not a drop of blood anywhere. They are very good, clear photos. There are no teeth puncture marks. There are no claw marks. I am looking at the classic, what is called the keyhole removal of tissue at the jaw, so that it is sort of like an oval along the side of the jaw. The eyeballs have been plucked out, and it's very clean. And what amazes me is that even though the Red Bluff Police Department incident report says from the officer who was there at approximately 7 o'clock in the evening, November 10th, 1998, and wrote, I checked the deer carcass, and it did not appear to have been dead very long. The deer parts had been removed, but there was no blood anywhere, unquote. He contacted the Fish and Game Department. They came and got the deer from the Banworth, and they said that when they contacted the police and the Fish and Game Department later, that Fish and Game said it was a mountain lion kill. I have seen photographs of mountain lion kills and all kinds of predator kills. I do not know why they do this, because there is absolutely not a sign on this deer of any such attack, and yet that's what will officially be the explanation of this very strange case in which in the excision at the what we'll call the vaginal rectal area, this was a female doe, that same kind of serrated edge that I've shown in my books and in my documentaries that we've examined by pathology and hematology tests and microscopic examinations, we have been able to find that in most of these serrated edges that the tissue was affected by something hot enough to cook the collagen, which is the fatty area, and the hemoglobin. And this seems, without having the tissue in my hand, to fall also into that category. But again, this will be a case that is going down in law enforcement files as a mountain lion attack when it clearly is not.
My God, Linda, the audio was a little difficult to hear in the report.
I'm sorry that we're in a strange system here.
I understand, but nevertheless, I got enough. And referring to when the tail was lifted, that the area was cored out. Now, when we look at animal mutilations, we think, all right, satanic activity. Well, they wouldn't core out something. They might mutilate something. They might bleed it, if it's voodoo or something, but they wouldn't surgically do anything to an animal. And we come back to the same old thing, Linda. I've asked you about this before. Then what do we imagine? If it's not satanic, then we imagine, well, maybe our government, black helicopters and all the rest of it. But our government can get all the cows it wants. Okay,
now we go to the new MJ-12 document.
Yes.
And in the July 22nd, 1947, War Department Interplanetary Phenomena Unit Summary Intelligence Assessment that you and I and others have been discussing here this week. It states, quote, the most disturbing aspect of this investigation, and that's July 1947, was there were other bodies found not far from Landing Zone 1, that was on the Corona Ranch,
right,
that looked as if they had, and I'm reading right from this document, had been dissected as you would a frog. It does not clarify if they mean human or non-human bodies. It simply says bodies dissected as you would a frog. It is not known if Army field surgeons had performed exploratory surgery on these bodies. Animal parts were reportedly discovered inside the craft at Landing Zone 2. That was 10 miles northwest of Oscura Peak, going towards Socorro. But this cannot be confirmed. The team has reserved judgment on this issue, unquote. Now, I remember that it was back in the early 1980s that in my discussions with people that were serving in intelligence as well as investigators, it was the first time that I encountered somebody telling me that at one of the multiple crashes in 1947 that our government was involved in retrieving what our government determined to be interplanetary or extraterrestrial craft and or humanoid bodies that were not human, that animal parts were found inside of one of these craft. And 10 years ago, when I was working on a project in Los Angeles, a man came to me to tell me that he had been in Vietnam during the war years, working specifically for the Central Intelligence Agency. Some of his work apparently involved some kind of interaction along these lines in the Southeast Asian war scene. And he said that he had specifically seen a file that related to Roswell, 1947, and a list of body parts from animals that had been retrieved from a craft. And I have had that stuck in the back of my mind for the last decade. And now here we have, for the first time, what seems to be vetting out as a truly historic document from 1947 that is referencing animal parts were reportedly discovered inside the craft at Landing Zone 2. And it says to me, Art, what I felt for a long time, and I've said publicly, as I've gotten into this investigation of this difficult subject matter over nearly 2 decades now, Well, once upon a time, I felt a certain kind of irritation, perhaps anger, that the government would keep all this from us. I have begun to feel quite compassionate that the early decisions about a policy of silence may have been well grounded at that time coming out of World War II, but I still feel today that as we move into this 21st century, that it's time that we all knew what the government has been trying to hide from us to protect us all these years.
Well, I sure couldn't agree more with that, Linda. It is time, and I want to know, as much as it may lead us toward, and I talked with Whitley about this with regard to the MJ-12 documents, it may lead us toward an explanation of our own origins.
Right.
That may be very, very difficult for us as society to deal with. Even knowing that, I would pursue the truth as opposed to having my head in the sand.
Well, this whole issue of genetic harvesting to make who knows what, we've heard about biological androids, we've heard about hybrids. The reason that my first book was titled An Alien Harvest, Further Evidence Linking Animal Mutilations and Human Abductions to Alien Life Forms,
Sure.
was that 10 years after I did that first documentary that was broadcast in 1980 called The Strange Harvest, in 10 years, I had talked to enough people and seen enough hard physical and medical data to realize that an interaction with something that our own government was classifying as extraterrestrial biological entities, at the same time they were denying all of it, that we were in a story that was so big that our own origin roots genetically are, I think, a part of this story, and that was, I think, part of the reason why that document that Richard Doty showed me at Kirtland Air Force Base on April 9th, 1983, when I was working on that home box office project, still resonates today because it had several very startling sentences in it, including one that I've never forgotten. It is burned into my mind, my memory, and it said, these extraterrestrials manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create Homo sapien. That was a direct sentence in that document. And it also said that there had been a project to try to verify the extraterrestrial information, and said all questions and mysteries about the evolution of Homo sapien on this planet have been answered, and this project is closed. And I remember staring at that sentence and reading it and rereading it with the implications that somebody in our government could write such a report and implying that somebody had come to information that for them said that all mysteries about our origin were answered and that it was tied to DNA manipulation of already evolving primates.
Sounds an awful lot like Sitchin, doesn't it?
Yes, I think that work going back into the time of Sumeria and our whole, I call it art, our forbidden history, the forbidden history of humankind, that in this, I think, over the next few years, if the earth doesn't flood itself or we do something else terrible, that we're going to move into a time that I personally think could be exciting, which is discovering what the real truth is about the origins of life on this planet. And rather than being afraid of it, I think it could be a very exciting century if we humans don't self-destruct our own environment.
Well, Linda, that walks hand in hand then with forbidden archaeology, doesn't it?
Yes, and that is another big I think, a subject that is so important that we're going to hear more about, because books and more discussions from real scientists, hard scientists, who have been sitting on material that they know is valid, but that it's not acceptable to the current scientific paradigm, and that the paradigm must change, and then we will all be talking about this openly and I hope honestly.
That's really something to hope for. If you were to ask me whether I think it will be a reality shortly, in other words, an open discussion about this, I've got to give you my honest view. The answer is no. I don't think there's going to be an open discussion about it. There's going to be the kinds of things that you and I are doing right now. Is Dan Rather going to be talking about it? No, I don't think anytime soon. Is 60 Minutes going to do a big investigative piece about our origins, perhaps challenging what so many cherish and believe with regard to their religious faith and belief? No, Linda, I don't think so.
Well, it may be that someone or something may force the hand of this issue, and it will finally make the 6 o'clock news where I think it belongs. And along these lines, it is the discovery of science today that actually is opening up new ground. I was intrigued by this Johannesburg, South Africa, Reuters story.
Oh, I know.
This week, as they've unearthed what appears to be one of our primate, as they said, ancestors, but somewhere way down the branch that is 3.6 million years old.
I know it's going to cause a lot of trouble. Linda, we're woefully out of time now. What a wonderful hour it's been. Please give your contact number.
Thanks, Art. Please, people listening, I welcome any information to fax number 215-491-9842. That's 215-491-9842.
All right, Linda, that's got to be it. Thank you so very much. Talk to you next week. Thank everybody at WOWW 1430 The Buzz there in Memphis. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Art.
And good evening. We'll be right back. He is the most famous guy, dead guy I know, and he's a friend of mine. Dannion Brinkley lives in South Carolina, where he does hospice work, updates his prophecies for the future, researches alternative medical therapies. He is the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, Saved by the Light, and of course, At Peace in the Light Now. Dannion Brinkley should be well known to you by now. I shouldn't have to introduce him. He was struck by lightning, not once but twice. The first time he was dead for quite a long time. He had an experience while he was clinically dead, and I think we've covered that in previous programs. His presence here today is only because he was able to conclude the work he was doing with a hospice patient who sadly just died. Dannion, welcome to the program.
Hey, Art, thanks a lot and welcome. And you're a very, very, very good friend of mine. And did I tell you today that I loved you very much?
Thank you. You always do.
And hello, America.
Dannion, you just did it again. I guess you just came back from somebody you were working with in hospice, and
165th.
You're 165th, huh?
But let me tell you something really cool, Art. Guess who my 166th person is? The mother of Tommy Hall, the guy who was on the other end of the phone talking to me when I was struck by lightning. My 166 is my second mom. She has 2 months.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, wait. If there was a God in the spiritual world, Art, look at the precision of how those events work. From time I was struck by lightning, the phone call, my mom, all the way to where I am right now.
Right.
And she called me, and she's known me since I was a little kid, and she said I couldn't wait unless you and I talk. That's some of the proudest moments I can have in my life. Now, I want to bitch a little bit. I came home from Egypt, and we want to talk about that. And I read articles in New York Times and people who say we're fringe and you're talking about crazy people and all that kind of stuff, and what people say about you hate Filipinos and you're married, the one I...
Oh, yeah. Hey, thank you for mentioning that. Call us toll free at 1-800-618-8255. But let me modify that a little bit. I don't want to say that on the air. Let's say that the person is a complete ass, and fill in the blank, folks. Yeah, that's who it is. Somebody using the University of Southern California at San Diego, UCSD servers, sent out a message, ostensibly from me, forged, of course, absolutely decimating the Filipino culture, and they put this on in Filipino news groups, and I'm getting death threats like you wouldn't believe, Dannion. So I may be number 167 for you.
Well, if that's the way it'll be, honey, I'll cradle you and take you safely. But you see, Art, all of us who are art knots, I'm one too. The nightlife is no life, but it's our life just the same. And when I read these articles when I got back, I'd like to tell, and I mean I'm bitching, but I'd like to tell all the people listening to this program and who listen to Art Bell, I have Compassion in Action, my foundation that trains hospice volunteers. And we also go to the Art Bell chat site in Atlanta. We came on the way there, not me, but my people there were on their way to the Art Bell chat site and to get together and have lunch, and they got a call from Peachtree Hospice. And they had a person that was 85 years old. He wouldn't have 4 days to live. He was on life support, and they were going to turn the electricity off. He had 4 little grandkids.
Oh, brother.
And no way to feed them. And they were going to turn the electricity off. Well, the Art Bell Chat Club of Atlanta and Compassion in Action of Atlanta joined together, combined their money, and the Compassion in Action went there and helped him through it, and the Art Bell Chat Club paid the lights, paid the bills, and fed those children. So for everybody who thinks they can say something about Art Knots or the Fringe or whatever the hell they think they can say, we are out here being inspired, combining our arts and our talents and our skill, and an 85-year-old man didn't get his respirator turned off because some guy in an electric company making $400,000 a year didn't care, but we did. So sometimes, instead of all that Filipino, and everybody knows who it is, because they just target certain area markets where you know that they can take that market away if they use your name to destroy it. Anybody who does demographics knows that game. But we're out here. I want all to thank everybody at the Art Bell Chat Club, and Bonnie and Melanie and all the people who made that happen.
What a wonderful thing for them to have done.
Well, can I tell you something?
Sure.
I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart when you turned to those people to pray for me, because I got to live and get up and see a combination of the work that we do, just being us, and where it really makes a difference. And I'm proud of that. So everybody out there at the chat club and everybody in the chat group and everybody listening, thank you for listening and doing and being you. Okay, I'm tired of bitching now.
Dannion, I'm a public person, and I take more than my share of barbs and slings and arrows, and that's part of the job. I've had the press after me. I've had everybody after me. But one thing that I did find very hurtful was this forged message demeaning the Filipino culture. As you well know, my wife is half Filipino herself.
Yeah, I mean, why would they do it that stupid? I mean, it's so obviously stupid.
Well, unfortunately, it went out to a lot of Filipino news groups that are not necessarily listeners to my program, and they're just reacting, of course, to the horrible, disgusting nature of the message. And, coming at me, and so I'm getting death threats you wouldn't believe. So I guess that's the nature of our society. Somebody who hates me so much or envies me or in some way wants to hurt me so much that they would do such a thing, to author something like this and forge it in my name. I just... it got to me, and I really shouldn't admit that, because that probably just encourages the lowlives to keep going.
Oh, wait a minute, Art. You're a guy just like us. I mean, you and I are good friends, and you're a person just like us, and those who listen and are part of this show, one of the greatest things about you is the openness. I mean, that's the fun part about it. I mean, the openness of it. So being able to tell us, and everybody knows, Ramona, if you hate them the way they said you did, and you knew Ramona, then they're stupid or you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to rant a little bit about that because it just makes me mad.
Well, it actually made me so angry that it disoriented me in a sense for a while. I just, I was livid. And I understand that the people who got this message have every right to be livid. If you'd read it, you'd be sick. Anyway, enough of that. I didn't write the message. It's now pretty well known where the message came from, and more and more now people understand that it certainly did not come from me.
But they were ridiculous to pick out Filipino people if they knew anything about Ramona. Give me a break.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Dan, have you had yet an opportunity to see What Dreams May Come?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I thought it
good.
was wonderful.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely.
I was as profoundly affected by that movie as any movie that I've seen in years and years, Dan.
I can understand it. It was absolutely wonderful.
We've had
It has nothing to do with what a near-death experience is like. You know, it's not. But it gives such symbolic natures for people to begin to appreciate the process that they go through. And it was a good representation, but it's not like that over there. But it's a way we could understand it.
I found it rather interesting, and of course I don't want to give away the plot. It's pretty well known that it's about a man who would follow his soulmate, if necessary, to hell to be with her.
Wasn't that great?
Yes. But what I noted about the movie, we talked about it the other night. I actually interviewed the director of that movie, who also, by the way, directed a movie called Somewhere in Time. Now, there was one reference in the entire movie to God. And you may recall it in the movie. Maybe you don't.
Oh, yeah.
I think she asked, "What about God?" Or he asked, no, it was the star of the movie who asked, "What about God?" And the answer was, "He's up there and he loves us." And that's all they ever said.
But I can tell you why. This is why, Art. When you lift out of your body and you move down that tunnel, you come into that place of a wondrous light. The whole point of where you live and dwell, you are a part of what we call God, but no one can even comprehend it. You just know and watch the movements and the laws or the reactions to it. But you are in the safety and the comfort that comes with that. It's just there. A lot of people say they're met by God or met by Christ or a beam or an angel. I really believe that you're met by you. I mean, I have this whole theory that came from this third near-death experience, and I'm trying to put it in a way that it takes a long time to find the sentences and the way to structure it, to explain to people. But all that prayer and that energy that was holding me as I went through the experience gave me a whole other dimension to look at the nature of who we are spiritually. And I'm working on that. I mean, I had an ordinary, normal near-death experience, finally.
An ordinary.
But those first two were cosmic. All the predictions, the stuff, and the things that as they come true. I mean, you know, think about looking at box 4 and 5 in Saved by the Light and look at the news. I mean, you can read the same. And I wrote the thing 1975.
Sure.
And so when you look at all that stuff and you think that stuff through, and then I had a normal near-death experience.
Dan, before we leave box 4 and 5 and the predictive side of things, have you given much thought to why during a near-death experience a person would be exposed to was what some would call prophecy, or in fact what is going to happen? In other words, to be able to see into the future. Why would somebody be suddenly privy to that information as a result of clinical death?
Well, just dealing with myself, Art, and looking through it and, you know, watching it, I think first that they somehow believed I could affect or change it. But I think then second, it was that to fulfill the vision, to put the centers in place at a certain time in a certain place, there would be markers by which I could observe to see where we were and anticipate how to handle it when it came time to put it in place. I mean, a part of it, I believe this. I mean, Ruth Montgomery, who wrote all those books about, about 12 years, she probably sold 12 million books in the 60s and 70s. A bunch of, I don't remember all the names of them. And she did channeling of it, and what she came back with was something a lot like that. So I think that people see the future so that they would have a marker, a milestone, or a way to understand where it was and what they could do to affect a change. I mean, I try to change in the things that I see that are bad, and I try to support and help the things good, just like why I go to Egypt. I mean, that's the main reason I spend that time there and what I'm doing, and also that they deal with death.
But what is the purpose of being shown what is to come? I mean,
to advise people and to help them make the right decisions.
But these are world-scale events, whether you're talking about...
Tell me about it, brother.
Yeah, so why give somebody like Dannion Brinkley, at the time of his first near-death experience, kind of a mean little bastard.
Oh, absolutely.
Why give him information about world events to come?
Because maybe he could do something. One night he could get on Art Bell and get 20 million people to think about it and maybe change it. And maybe just in that one time, one moment, one night, talking to 10 million people, we made a move to change something, just like we did with Compassion in Action.
So you believe it. You believe that what you saw is not necessarily the future.
If we're here, it's just a probable possibility.
Probable possibility, but so much of what you saw already has come true.
Yeah. It's happening now so tight, Art, and you can just read it in the book, and I can read it off the Jerusalem Post.
I know. Hold on, Dan. We'll be right back. Dannion Brinkley is my guest. I'm Art Bell. This is Dreamland.
Stay tuned for more with Art Bell.
Once again, here I am. My guest is Dannion Brinkley. It's really been a long time since Dan and I have done a show together. We talk frequently, as a matter of fact, but it's been a while since I've had him on the air, and it sure is nice to have him back. So back to Dannion Brinkley in a moment. The recent occurrences of...
The first one.
Yeah, thank you. Dan, I want... we talked about seeing the future in near death, and now I want to touch on another aspect, and it's probably going to bring the same kind of answer from you. I know that when you came back, you had... Now, let me backtrack. I have a lot of people on my show, Dan, and I let people talk. I'm not a confrontational talk show host. Instead, I try to help people tell their story. Some are believable, some are not. I allow the audience to make up their own mind. Rarely do I express an opinion of my own. With regard to you and your psychic ability, I know it to be a fact. Personally, I know it to be a fact. And I rarely say this. I know what psychic ability you have. And I know that when you came back to life, you had a tremendous amount. You had so much psychic ability, the ability to hear the thoughts of others, to touch a piece of paper and know where it came from and everything about the person who wrote it, and so forth and so on. Why do you think, and I'm sure you've given hours and days and years of thought to this, that going to death's door and through it a little bit, coming back, would suddenly give you this, either blessing or curse, depending on how you look at it.
Both,
yeah, I'm sure.
Just the skill.
Yeah.
I think 2 points in that are the fact that I was struck by lightning, and we're electrical chemical. It could enhance a lot of what is the electrical chemical natures of the brain and the mind. We now know that people who've been struck by lightning are classified in the offices of rare diseases and disorders in the National Institute for Health as a rare disorder, because we who are struck by lightning have completely different reactions and things that happen to us as opposed to other forms of electrocution or shock. And then I also think that when you know you don't die, and you realize what you travel and where you go when it's time to go home, you expand your horizons. You know, like when you were listening to all the things that I do, when you know you don't die, you have 50% of your life back and you get bored. So that's how I get into all the stuff I get into, because I know you don't die. I know the way home. I know the process by which you go through the panoramic life review, which gives you a meaning in how to live your life as you go through it, and that's exactly how I live my life. And I have a comfortable zone in a place where I find in my life my religion is hospice. I can make a difference in that person's transition because they see the comfort, and I can train people to do it. So that's what I use that talent for. But we all have these abilities. There's nothing unusual about it. Which religion teaches us some kind of stuff that's evil, but there's the gifts of the Spirit. One day, Art,
it's like you were hit with a psychic hammer, though.
Yeah, Art, I never believed a bit of this crap one day. The next day I was dead. The day after that, I became everything I never believed. I didn't know how to handle it, and the input that was coming, I couldn't understand it. I mean, it was hard at first. But now I find a reason and a way to use it so that it helps people, I can contain and control a lot of the input that heretofore I couldn't. But, if people wanted to be intuitive, there are ways to learn that. I mean, there is a value system. When you go through this thing 2 or 3 times, and you've been with 165 people, and maybe 80 have been resuscitated, and I know every major researcher in the world, and I looked at this all over the world, Egypt and immortality and the ways, and Machu Picchu in Peru with the mummy cults. I've looked at it. When you take a good look at it from that point of view, you really understand that life has a whole bunch of different other meanings, and you don't really get all worried about that. What I always try to teach people, you can be whatever you want to be. You have to set a value system. Then you have to set a method, then a destination, and then who it serves, and why you want it.
All right, Dan, can I stop you?
Sure, you're the boss.
Here's what I think I want to ask. I had an OBE, Paris, France. Was amazing. Wasn't a dream. It was a real thing. It was an OBE. I was out of my body. There's no question about it, Dan.
What do you think triggered it?
I don't know. I have no idea. Probably being out of my routine or whatever. I have no idea. But
Hold on.
That isn't where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Dan, I know what I experienced. There aren't words to convey to you or the audience.
Well, there's worry to convey it to me, though.
Well, maybe there is. But the fact of the matter is, Dan, I can't state categorically that what happened to me was not a product of a conscious living mind, a conscious living brain. And while there are people who have clinically died, death is kind of a gray area. In other words, we know the heart stops, brainwave activity appears to stop, but people do come back, and they're still the same person they were before. Some remember near-death experiences, some don't. But nobody has died for days and ever come back. Not ever, Dan.
I think Lazarus, there's a little guy in the Bible that did that.
Well, okay.
You know how they write that. That's probably the same guy who wrote that Filipino letter.
I don't know. All I know is that there's something in me that won't let me make that final jump to conclude that there absolutely is a continuation following complete physical death.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that, Art. I mean, that's not an improper place to view it from when you look at it. I mean, scientific and empirical evidence and information and what you look at to discern to conclude that point. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that. But can I tell you something?
I don't think that as a fact. I just don't know one way or the other.
Well, let me give you a piece of just shallow advice. After 3 of these, struck by lightning, open heart surgery, brain surgery, I can tell you absolutely without any question there's a life after death. And not only is there a life after death, it is the most wondrous experience to relive, to be yourself again. But you choose to come here, and you've chosen to come here. Come per breath, breathe in for you and out for spiritual unfoldment, and you have a job, and you come and do it. And when that's the reason, and you accomplish that job, you return back to where you came from. The crystal cities in the first 2 near-death experiences, I went further than in the third one. And I can accept when people say, I don't believe that, or it's chemical, or it's oxygen brain deprivation, or temporal lobe seizures.
I simply can't rule it out.
Well, I mean, it would be foolish, Art. There's 15 million of us, and we're just everyday people. And it happened. And if you pick up my medical records, you get a hernia. There's no question about what.
I know that. I know.
Yeah, so it does happen, but everybody has their own reasons for why they build their belief system to hold on or function in their life. I don't know if you truly knew that it was that there was life after death, or you knew it. What would it change about you? For me, it just changed everything.
It would change everything, Dan.
Yeah, trust me.
It would change everything. There's no question about it. If I conclusively knew that. But I'm not even sure that an NDE for me would accomplish that. I would still have in the back of my somewhat skeptical brain, and I know a lot of people laugh when I say that, because a lot of people think I'm not skeptical about anything, but I really am.
Oh, they don't know you as well as I do.
In the back of my skeptical brain, there would be, look, I know the vital signs disappeared and all the rest of it, and I had this incredible experience, but how do I conclusively rule out the possibility that it was a function of a brain in trauma and distress, even in the process of dying, but it didn't quite die. And so I have memories of what occurred during that period.
Okay, well, let's try this one. I brought back 117 predictions that were the future. And there are 97 of 96 of them come to pass, and it's in the newspaper today.
I hear you. And I know that's true, Dan. But
so the fun part about it is like when people say that, because I don't argue with them. I laugh about it a lot of times, but if I didn't, then how in the world did I bring back this stuff?
Well, I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to suggest to you a possibility, and that is, with respect to your psychic ability, I have no question. I know it's true. With respect to the predictions you made that have come true, that's documented. There's no question about it. But again, Dan, you've got to consider it possible that these things, we don't understand a great deal about our brain, and it may be the lightning that hit you, the trauma, open heart surgery, the trauma to your brain, activated some portion of your brain that all human beings possess, but don't use. You know, it's a famous saying, we use about 10% of our brain, some of us less, but not more. And so there's a lot of gray matter up there that, may suddenly be activated by this kind of trauma that may not have a thing to do with what really happens when you die and don't come back.
I can agree. I think that's a very good point of reference. I mean, I can agree to that. My problem is it happened to me.
Yep.
Yeah, but I can agree because I've talked to a lot of people, Art, who they described a near-death experience, but from being around this for 20 years, that's not what happened. It was a chemical reaction, or it was they're reacting to something going on in the anesthesia. When you go through hundreds of cases, and you watch it, because you know how I am, I don't believe anything. And I go at everything to approach that it is not true. And I study and I look at it because what I want to do is to be able to help people make the right decisions when they're dealing with moms and dads and kids and us losing the ones closest to us. I want to be able to stand there and know what I'm talking and help them have closure and to leave there. So as I go through this, year after year after year, even if a person never had a near-death experience, if they became a hospice volunteer, they would see and hear and know things. I've seen people leave their bodies, Art. I've seen beings of light come in the room to get them. I have watched this stuff for years. And when people really want to see and test it, then be a hospice volunteer, because you are right there at the point when the heaven's gate opens. And in order for a person to leave, that curtain, the veil must raise. That's why I love this stuff.
I don't know how you can do it. Yeah, you do love it. And, I think I want to ask you about something. Somebody else that I think may love death is Dr. Jack Kevorkian. This is something you and I have never talked about. Kevorkian has been assisting people across the threshold for some time now. Sick people, Parkinson's, various terribly disabling, painful, horrible diseases. And I, frankly, this stirs up all kinds of hell that I'm going to get for it, but I don't care. I'm getting too old to care about this crap. I've thought of Kevorkian as, frankly, heroic myself.
Heroic?
Heroic, yes, sir.
He's on an ego trip.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he, and you know what? I think it's all the wrong way.
But he's doing something that's good.
It's all the wrong way. I don't know that we're in our society ever going to get to the point where it can be done the right way, and I don't even pretend to know what the right way is. But
it's going to come, Art.
They shoot horses, don't they? In other words, why would we allow a human being to go through a painful, horrible, suffering, twitching death when it need not be that way? And so now they've got Kevorkian on trial for murder.
Well, that won't turn into anything.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
But here's what I think about that, Art. I have two perspectives. Until I had brain surgery, which when you saw me, I encountered something I could not believe could ever be possible.
Yeah, I saw you.
I did not know that there was that kind of pain. I did not and could never have believed the kind of pain. That helped me kind of change my perspective. I am not for euthanasia. I mean, I'm not pro Kevorkian, but I think people have their rights.
Look, Dan, I sat next to a hospital bed with you, and I'm going to remember some words for you. You said, look, if they want to do this operation, and they're not going to break open my chest and open my heart and all the rest of it, fine. They want to drill holes in my head, brain surgery, fine. But he said, look, if this doesn't happen, I want out of here because I can't handle this pain. I remember your words, Dan.
Oh, yeah. I signed that stuff over to my dad, my living will and my power of attorney.
Yep, I was there. I remember.
I couldn't take it. But see, then I began to give a little ground. I believe we choose to come here and are chosen to come, and we come per breath, and we should hold out our contract. But where Kevorkian is coming in is he's doing something that is just an ego trip. What frightens me about it, Art? I live in the Medicaid system and the Medicare system.
Yeah, I think he loves death. I think he actually enjoys doing what he does, and that's a freaky thing. But
that's I think that's what's wrong.
But the larger point, I think he's right about. In other words, I'm pretty much a libertarian, Dan, and my position was carved out by my wife, who said, "Look, brother, you're here to play the hand you're dealt. And if you don't play the hand you're dealt, then you're going to end up playing it later. You know, the karma thing, the next life thing, whatever you want to think. You're supposed to play the hand out. And if that means...
I agree.
And so do I. But then there's a side of me that's a libertarian that says, I have absolutely no right to tell anybody else what they can or can't do with their bodies and their life. And sure as hell, the government has no right.
You know, we think just alike.
Well, maybe that's why we get along.
Yeah, but I mean, we think just alike. My place in play, I'm libertarian. I mean, I am like that. But you have to take it into the perspective of this. As managed care HMOs, these systems are developing programs and supporting Kevorkian so that they can put in motion a euthanasia system because their profits come per quarter.
Yeah, well, God help us.
Well, no, we just have to stay very much aware of that and keep our vigil on it because that's where it'll be led to. So if we put that thought pattern in place, because I have all of my CIA volunteers aware of pain management, of watching where a person is when they want to commit suicide and want to die. Yep. And there's 3 or 4 things that you check first. I mean, I train my people to do this because I've been one of these people. And I see the horrors of what they don't get and what they need, and people dying by themselves and scared and terrified. And I train my people. How many people think to realize that today, 32,000 World War II veterans leave leave this earth every month. And how many of them have somebody with them? Less than 1%. And 2 years from now, 39,000 will pass per month for the next 6 years. And when I think about those guys who fought and what they've done and been through, and I'm in those places, and they're creating managed care, it's going to break the system. Well, at that point, they will start killing them. That's what they'll do. And I sit and watch those things be developed. And, people can sit at home and do whatever they do and think what they think. But I'm in it every single day. And I read Medicaid and Medicare. I look at the issues. I study them because these are my people. And I train my people to be able to handle it. Here's what I think, CR. If we become volunteers in the healthcare system, they can't fire us. And all those lies they're telling, all the lobbyists and the crap they pass, and the billion-dollar salaries these managed care systems make.
I know.
When it comes time, every 2 years, when we take a deadly name called a constituent, we can vote and stand up for these issues. Did you leave?
No, I'm right here. Dan, there is a member of my family who has just been diagnosed with malignant melanoma tumor. And so I am going to be dealing, I am afraid,
No doubt.
with what people my age, I'm 53 years old now,
Baby boomers.
are dealing with. And so
81 million of us are.
81 million of us, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I think you're probably close to facing the same thing in your life, aren't you?
Yeah, with 2.
Yeah. Dan, hold on. We're at the top of the hour. We'll be right back. So these are real life, real tough issues. Really tough issues. My guest is Dannion Brinkley, and I suggest you stick around. This is very serious stuff, folks. I'm Art Bell from an area near what pilots affectionately call Dreamland. This is Dreamland, exploring the most important questions on Earth. We'd be glad to take calls if you have any questions you would like to ask. So there you are. You've got the numbers. I'm Art Bell, and in a moment, Dannion will be right back. Welcome back.
Thanks, Art.
Listen, either you're going to slow down or you're going to have a near-death or complete death experience pretty soon.
Oh, I agree.
You're doing too much, and it's got to stop.
I agree.
I want to keep you around for a while. You've got things you've got to tend to yourself, and this travel's going to kill you, Dan.
Well, you know how hard, I have to have 2x4 therapy, but I'm learning it. But you know what, when you have a hospice patient, it doesn't matter. When you get up and you go,
No, that I understand, Dan, but trips to Egypt and
but Art.
Machu Picchu and all the rest of it, I know it's wonderful, but I also have done a lot of it myself, and I know what it takes out of you, Dan, and it's going to kill you.
Well, I can cut out a lot of it, but Art, in Egypt, there are things happening. I mean, they found another sarcophagus.
I know.
They're finding some of the coolest stuff in the world.
I know.
Zahi is going to put a gold cap on that pyramid.
I know it. You know what else I heard? Maybe you can confirm or deny this rumor.
Just left there.
It broke in the papers back here that Zahi is contemplating closing the Great Pyramid.
Oh, it's closed.
Forever. No, not just temporarily, permanently.
Well, he might have said that.
Yeah, he did say that.
Because they're cleaning it. I can take my groups in.
I know they're cleaning it, but I mean, he's talking about closing it permanently, Dan.
Well, the preservation of it.
His comment actually was, why would anybody want to visit a tomb anyway?
Well, if they put that cap on the top of it, and that energy begins to generate again, I think they'll have some serious things happening in Egypt.
That may well be. Listen, I've got a young lady who wants to talk to you, and I just want to fit her in here.
Sure.
First time caller line, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley and Art Bell. Where are you, please?
I'm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Hi there. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
Your name?
Barb Prouty.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, my mother passed 2 months ago,
Right.
and she went in for a surgery to open up her arteries, and she never recovered from the surgery. And when she had passed the first time, she had came to me and told me why she had to go because she was in so much pain.
Now, she came to you in her spirit self?
Yes.
Okay.
I was sleeping. And
how long after her transition?
happened is the first time that she passed, she had said, honey, I have to go because I'm in so much pain. And I seen her by the tunnel of light with a little child hanging on to her hand. And then at that time I went to say something to her, and the nurses woke me up.
And she has come back? She was resuscitated?
Yeah, but then she still never, she responded like for 2 days after by just rubbing her hand.
Well, she told you why she was leaving.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what people don't really get is this death business we've all been taught about is rubbish. 66% of all widowers have some form of contact, and probably because you would worry so much when she made her transition, when she left or became comatose, she just wanted you to know. I hear and see this stuff all the time. I mean, I know there's a wondrous spiritual world and that we're powerful and mighty spiritual beings. And as she went down the tunnel, how do you feel about what she did when she came to you?
It scared me because I didn't want her to go. But by seeing the light and this, and then I knew she's gone to heaven.
And that scared you?
It just I didn't want her to go. I didn't want to lose her.
Well, think of this. If you have to lose something and heaven gains it, it's a pretty good place to start getting over it.
Okay.
You know, if it's heaven, because all of us come here leaving. And when she came and said, I can't take the pain and I'm going, it's okay to miss her.
I miss her terribly and it hurts.
Well, can I tell you a way that you can contact her?
No.
You don't want to know?
I do.
Okay, here's how to do it. Find a calm, quiet place. Breathe in and out. Breathe in to the count of 4 and out to the count of 8. And when you find a very comfortable breath, like, you close your eyes and you think of the funniest thing that ever happened between the two of you.
Okay.
And wherever she is, she will feel that. Now let me tell you the drawback. She might be standing before some serious archangel giving her a lecture and burst out laughing.
Okay.
But remember, laughter and joy and love crosses all boundaries.
And then my brother, he left him executor of the will, and he's really destroying the family.
Here's the second most important legal field, probating wills. Because we in the baby boomer era are losing our moms and dads and brothers and sisters. The fastest growing our legal profession is probating. I live in this all the time. What you have to do when you deal with that is it's difficult because who is your brother and he's stealing it all or whatever's happening.
Right.
But never let that stuff be attached to you. Hold on to those dreams and those memories, and get you a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Now, you get you a good friend that's a lawyer or probate, and then you check it out. I live in this world, and I love it because I can make a difference and fair-handed and straight, and I understand the law, the medical. What is the glorious part about it? You will see her again.
Yeah.
And now you stick to doing your job.
Yeah, it's hard for me to go on.
But listen, you have to do this. It's all right to miss her and to bereave and to grieve, but you have a mission to do, and you let go and you start over. You begin to go help little children, go work in a soup kitchen, go help somebody, go to see shut-in, go over to a nursing home.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, don't let all that stuff hold you and tie you back. Go give love. Go find someone to help, and you'll be amazed at how it'll help you get over it. You'll see her again.
She never comes to me in my dreams.
Well, why would she want to be aggravated with you if she's been where I know she is? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, because if I get over there and I get to go to the most wondrous, magnificent place again, you won't have to worry about me coming to you in your dreams.
Yeah.
I'm staying over there.
Okay.
Go help someone. Go give love and go give thanks and help someone. The most important thing I learned in the near-death experience, 3 of them, that the judgment system after the panoramic life review, and this is a Dannionism, but it's the best way I know how to say it. If God couldn't come today, and God sent you, in the life you just looked at, what difference did God make? So don't miss so much that you don't go make the difference and help someone in their life. And that in turn will help change and affect your life.
Yeah.
And did I tell you tonight that I loved you very much?
I love you too, and I'm glad I got through to you.
Thank you so much for the call. Take care. So that brings us back, Dan, to where we were. So many of us at about our age are going to face the passing of our parents. And
brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles.
Yeah, and there has been, there's no greater struggle for me. You know, I do it here on the air, struggling with these questions of life and death and what may or may not lie beyond. And I am not comforted in giving somebody advice that I have not yet embraced myself, Dan.
Well, I mean, I think that's proper and right. I mean, you know, I think that's right. Because the advice I give, I have embraced it and spent about $400,000.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I got me a good education there, hard. And so when I'm doing it, I mean, here we are. This has to be dealt with, faced, and looked at. Check the statistics. If you have a family member anywhere in the world, you have an 81% chance that that family member is going to turn to you if they're terminal or if they have a severe disease.
Sure.
You have a 61% chance that if you have a friend, that friend is going to turn to you if they are terminal or catastrophic. And you have a 100% chance that you're going to turn to you. So those statistics, that statistical perspective puts it to where you better learn about it. Why? That's what I created Compassion in Action all about. I saw where people were, and I was not afraid of death. And as I saw them struggle with hoping they were doing the right things and those kinds of issues, am I doing the right thing? Should I let them go? And all that kind of stuff. And they're my brothers and sisters. They're us. So Compassion in Action, I created to create training programs and volunteers that can assist using the things that I learned from near-death experiences. And we're really good at it. And we can help people make the right decision. You know what? I think what bugs a lot of people is after they're gone, because you didn't have closure. And these are one of the biggest things I deal with. They just wish they had 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And that's what I train CIA people to be. Because when you know you don't die, I mean, I've been through this so much, and you understand the beauty of going home, then you have to help people in the assistance of dealing with it. And, you know, here we are. There's no other place to go but to deal with it. And I'm not troubled by it. I just want to help people in that decision and in that process to know they did the right thing. I can't stand all the stuff that they do to people and torture them to death. I see such horror. And so if you know it, you understand it, living wills, powers of attorney, what you want and what you don't want, and then you keep dignity and respect in the process of passing.
All right. First time caller line, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Bob in Texas.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
I'm an NDE. I was electrocuted back in '57.
My man.
And I do enjoy when you say the beauty of coming home. And my heart goes out to that last caller. Dannion, could you spend a little time and devote some time to differentiate for the listeners between OBE, out of body, and NDE? OBE seems to get quite a bit of coverage because it's quite exciting.
Well, an out-of-body experience is a part of the near-death experience, but it's not the part that is like the significant. You lift out of your body, but an out-of-body experience happens to people all the time, and yogas do it. There is a way we have to realize that we have 3 bodies: a mental body, a physical body, and a spiritual body. And not really so much as a spiritual body. Let's say we have a physical body, an ethereal body, a mental, emotional body, and then the connectiveness to the oneness. Well, what can happen because we're just slightly attached to this physical form? And a lot of people in dream states and theta states or practice can lift out of their bodies. Some people astral travel. And an out-of-body experience, you don't ever go very far from the body, and it can be induced, and it happens to a lot of people. A near-death experience, you live from that body, and you literally break what they call the silver cord, and you move down a tunnel. And it's symbolic. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it happens quite often. And it's symbolically representing a transition, coming to a place of bright, beautiful light. And a lot of people are met by loved ones. I mean, I've had people tell me their family members have met them. But like Art said earlier, I'm such a jackass. I've been over there 3 times, and no relatives come to meet me yet. So it kind of gives an idea what kind of person I am. But people are met by loved ones, and they always are met by a being of light. And they call it Jesus or these kinds of names. I believe it's just really myself. And the difference between a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience is the further depth into the process of leaving this world the NDE takes you, as opposed to the out-of-body experience. People who have out-of-body experiences, there's a complete different result or perspective from those who have near-death experience. How'd I do, Bob?
You did good. I also want to reiterate what you said about taking time to help those who are close to going. My lady and I spent Thanksgiving Day visiting a very elderly lady, and Dannion and Art, the look on her face when we walked into that room, and to watch her face light up, it's the fondest memory of Thanksgiving Day.
Think about this, Bob.
What's that?
Think of this. If God couldn't come today, and God sent you and your lady,
that's right.
And the day on Thanksgiving, what difference did God make? What she lit up and she smiled was the presence and essence of God coming because you were there.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
when you have your panoramic life review, when it passes before your life, you will feel the joy of the smile you gave that lady.
Yep. Thank you both.
Thank you, and take care, sir. Yeah, I believe that. I think in a lot of ways, Dan, the concept of a panoramic life review is probably more frightening than the prospect of a black nothingness. In other words, lights out, good night, nothing further. That a full life review is almost scarier than that.
Well, think of this, Art. Have you been that bad a boy?
Yeah, I've been pretty bad.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, I got a lot of things I'm guilty about. I've done a lot of things in my life that I'm sorry for, Dan. And I think I speak for most of us when I say that.
But here's how it works, Art. When you move into the point in the transition to the panoramic life review, you literally have a 360-degree full view panoramic holographic review. You watch yourself from a second person, as if you were your best friend watching you. And what I learned from that is when people say to be sympathetic towards something, it's just not true. It is empathetic, because when it's sympathetic, you already think you're better off than the person that you're trying to develop compassion for.
Right.
And then you literally will become every person that you've ever encountered, and you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person.
That scares the hell out of me, Dan.
Honey, you should have tried my first one. 25-year-old jackass.
Yeah, I know your history.
Oh, God, Art.
But while I'm no Charlie Manson, I'm no Charlie's Angel either. That's all metaphoric. In other words, I carry a lot of guilt about some things I've done, and if I had to experience them as the person that I treated experienced it, then I've got some hell to look forward to. I'm Art Bell, and this is Dreamland. Maybe one of my last ads for it. Call, if you would like, 24 hours a day, 1-800-864-7991. That's 1-800-864-7991. Dan, I've got a question by email for you.
I want to tell those people something, Art. The Quickening is a tremendous book.
Yep.
I didn't read the first one.
Thank you.
But I can tell you, The Quickening is terrific.
Yeah, I know. I wonder about that book, Dan. I wrote it. It poured forth. I've been speaking out against this channeling thing for years. I think it's a bunch of hooey. Not all of it.
Have you read your book?
Not all of it. Have I read my book? Yeah, that's the problem. You see, it sort of just came from me. And so in some ways, I guess.
But you know what I think, Art? When you sit and listen to you really pay attention to what some big crazy people and really smart people, you keep up with it.
Yeah,
and your mind keeps up with so much stuff. When I read The Quickening, it was like an encapsulating view of all the things that you've heard and looked at and put into a chronological perspective that people could take all the shows and see what you had learned from it. I mean, it is a tremendous book.
Thank you.
You know,
Oh, by the way, speaking of books, Dan, enough about mine. I know you're working on one, right?
oh yeah. If it's true, what shall we do?
When's it going to be out?
Well, I don't know when they'll bring it out because they're going to try to do a television show along with it.
Are you done with it? Is it
I'm about 2 chapters away.
2 chapters away?
Yeah, which means 4.
All right. Well, you've got to stay home for a while, Egypt or not, and so finish it.
Oh, no, I'm going to do that. And, you know, if anybody likes the other 2 books, it's Saved by the Light and At Peace in the Light.
We don't want to have to publish something with the missing chapters, Dan. Stay home for a while.
Oh, I'm going to do that.
Listen, here's the question. Please ask Dannion, what does he mean when he says that we are powerful spiritual beings? What do you mean by that?
Exactly. We're not poor, pitiful, stupid little humans trying to have some type of mystical experience. We're great and powerful and mighty spiritual beings trying to have a human experience.
Second question, what is the nature of that power?
Well, the power comes from that you understand you are forever, that you are a being of light, that you live and can journey across fathoms and legions of space you can't even comprehend, and that you have a closeness with a divine spirit.
How can that power be applied?
Love.
How should it be applied?
Love.
How can it be abused?
By free will. A person has free will to give love and to take action toward things in love and to try to bring joy and happiness, but not in some kind of Pollyanna way.
Gotcha.
Is the key. Because when I look at something and going on around me, and I've been through 3 near-death experiences, and I use this intuitive ability and I use therapeutic touch, then I will walk into a situation, and when I look around, I said, okay, if God couldn't come today, God sent me, no matter how depressing that sounds, what difference can I make as if God was here? And then I also have attached to that I am a healer. So when I walk into a situation, I'm looking at it from a healer's perspective and the difference that I could make. And what it does, Art, I know it sets up the panoramic life review because I've had 3, but it also gives you a unique way to look at the world going on around you, because this is not airy-fairy crap. You know, people who know me from South Carolina, and I don't buy into about how I'm like you. I don't buy into it. I've heard people do lectures and tell me stuff, and I can say, hey, look, I've only been dead 3 times, and I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. So the application of it, love is a power, but not, you know, it's such an overused word. Your ability to see how to make a difference and to take the action to do it.
All right, Dan, we've got a lot of people here. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley in South Carolina. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, all right.
And my name's Jerry.
I'm sorry, we missed your name. What was it?
My name's Jerry.
Jerry, okay.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jerry. I just want to say that I do a lot of hospice work.
Thank you.
And the one thing that I have noticed with hospice patients is a lot of them just want to be validated that they have done something here.
See, the panoramic life review, what I do, Jerry, this is from having the panoramic life review, you're hearing a person's intuitive spiritual self begin to make the process to the panoramic life review. So what I have trained Compassion and Action people to do is to start asking them that. What was the best time? What was your greatest accomplishment? What was the worst thing? What was the best thing that happened between you and your dad? The best thing between you and your mom? And what you begin to watch is that person look at his life and tell you things that are troubling them and holding on to them. I mean, I know you see this stuff, but when the person starts with the validation of the distance travel so they can tell someone their history and story, then a person sitting there and asking them value questions about it enables them to pass from this world quicker.
Uh-huh.
I mean, my people die really quick.
No, that makes pretty good sense, frankly. And is that what you meant, ma'am?
Yes, it is. And I understand what he's saying. Usually I don't see a patient probably maybe 2 or 3 times. There was only one lady that I had for 3 months, and I got so close to her.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yes.
You know what they teach us? People say to me, Jerry, all the time, you know, you're so wonderful, Dannion, how do you do it? And I look at them like they're fools. I do it because I gained so much. I learned so much about myself and life. I do it for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. See,
I agree.
Did I tell you today I love you very much?
Oh, thank you so much, and I love you.
And thank you for doing the work, Jerry.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Take care, ma'am. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley. Where are you, please?
In southern Manitoba, Canada.
Manitoba, Canada. Okay, you're going to have to yell at us. You're not very loud. Do you have a
is that a little better?
Oh, it certainly is.
Okay, how are you doing this evening, gentlemen?
Fine.
That's great. Good to speak with both of you. Thank you so much for taking my call and for being there.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to us.
Oh, it has been such a joy. I tell you, I just found Mr. Bell in his programs last year, and he's certainly...
Don't you love him?
Full. I have so much to say about how wonderful it is that he's there.
Thank
You're
you.
there, too.
Thank you.
I've had NDEs, too many to stop and count because I'm presently trying to get through my day-to-day existence as I am. I have occasionally experienced telepathic communication. Like you say, you're bombarded with other people's thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to deflecting, I mean, it's wonderful when you pick up nice thoughts, right? Good thoughts. But when you pick up the bad stuff, and then if you...
Give me an example of the bad stuff.
Well, just negative things, rude, lewd comments.
Do you pick that up intuitively, or do you pick it up with your ears and react to it emotionally?
No, I don't react to it. I deflect it. I've learned to control this. I've come to a situation where someone else younger than me has asked input and advice on how they can handle it because they're experienced NDEs, bad NDEs. I've had good NDEs. They've had bad.
About 3% of the people who report a near-death experience have a bad one. But a lot of those, and I'm not saying that every one of them is good, but a lot of those can be traced to drugs, overdoses.
Right, past bad experiences. And my advice is to create new experiences, get out and do new things and enjoyable things.
Well, my advice to them is to study what kind of chemical reactions were going on in the situations, and a lot of time anesthesias and things like that, and check those things first, and then look at
where you... Is it best not to telepathically communicate with anyone that's in a negative mind frame?
Yeah, that's a good question. How about that?
I can telepathically communicate with anybody.
But her question, Dan, was: is it best not to telepathically communicate with somebody in a negative frame of mind, who's in a very negative place?
You would send love. You would surround them with love as a telepathic energy. You would send love to them, because if someone's in a negative space, we're not to run from them. They're our brothers and sisters. We're to aid them. Surround them with love, and ask for whatever their guides. We all have guides. It's like 7 of us, you and 6 others that work in teams and levels of consciousness. Then you ask that they're guides, and you sincerely put and surround them with love, not move away from negativity. Our job here is, as co-creators in the spiritual concept, is to help those people going through that and to create a loving, better world. So, give them your love. Keep your distance and guard yourself using psychic shields. But hey, we're out here to try to change it to something better.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley and Art Bell. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Art.
Good afternoon. Where are you?
I'm in Corvallis, and my name's Errol.
Yes, sir.
Corvallis, Oregon. Good afternoon, Mr. Brinkley. These people are really in for a show on Sunday. This is excellent. And
my dad is Mr. Brinkley.
What was that?
My dad is Mr. Brinkley. I'm just Dannion.
Oh, okay. What I wanted to ask you was, you said you had 3 NDEs?
Yes, sir.
When you have these NDEs, do you see in a more dreamlike mental state, or is it more of like when you see in a physical eye?
Let's say it's like in dealing with your eyes. Let's say that your eyes can perceive color. like the spectrum of the rainbow, that you can walk through energy fields as clear and as crisp as though you could see the energy fields. Everything is layers of energy in different colors and hues, unless, like the movie art was talking about, once you pass the crystal cities and you move into a place where you're working through, you can literally create what you want to create. And then you can live in anywhere you wanted to.
Okay, but if you were to die and your blood flow were to stop in your physical eye and your eye were no longer applicable, would you be able to sense those energies?
You mean, say that again?
When you die, your blood flow, or when you cease life, your blood flow would stop to your eye. Therefore, ceasing the use of your eye would be no longer applicable.
Well, he's talking about a different kind of eye, right?
Like a perspective of using the eye. When you lift out of that body, you see, feel, know, comprehend everything around you. You yourself in your entirety is a perceptive creature built of light.
He was thinking of the physical eye and talking about a physical condition of lack of blood flow, and obviously the optic nerve's not functioning. So he was sort of missing the boat there a little bit. First time caller line, you're on the air with Dannion Brinkley. Hi.
Hello.
Hello there. Where are you?
In Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi. I lost my mother recently, and I guess my question being, I'm concerned about her resting in peace because of the turmoil that's going on with the family. Two brothers are being very difficult, won't let us engrave the headstone for our parents' grave, taking things that rightfully belong to us that were placed in our mother's safety deposit box for safekeeping will not be turned over to us. It's just a lot of upset, and I guess I worry whether she is resting in peace or not.
So I can tell you, she doesn't give a rip.
Yeah?
When she moved out of that body, none of that stuff means anything. She may feel the connectiveness of what's going on. I mean, but she's not in turmoil. She's in peace because material stuff doesn't matter. And where you take your comfort in all of this is remember, each of those people, as they do what they do, will come to a point one wonderful day where they will have a panoramic life review. And they will feel everything that they did to you as they are taking and handling the will the way that you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice when like a lot of times you cannot do anything about what happens, without fighting it out in court or what it's worth, or going and cracking them in the head.
Right.
But remember this, they don't get away with it.
Yeah.
And keep the memories of your mom. Keep those memories, the joy and the laughter that you had, because I didn't see any of that junk over there.
Right.
And when you lock yourself into a material possession, and that's the value that they can take it when your mom's gone, let them have it.
All right, we'll have to hold it there. We're so short on time. Email question, Art, please ask Dan, what happens to people in the afterlife, those who commit suicide?
Well, mostly they rest.